What would you do if the man you loved, a decorated U.S. Army general stationed overseas, asked you to buy $5,000 worth of iTunes gift cards to help secure his military retirement? My name is Carol. I'm 62 years old, and for 8 months I believed I was in love with General Michael Davidson, a 3-star general serving in Syria. I sent him over $47,000 in gift cards, wire transfers, and Western Union payments, all because he made me feel like the most important woman in the world. But when he asked for one gift card too many, I did something that would expose not just him, but an entire network of military romance scammers operating across 3 continents. This is the story of how I went from a lonely widow sending iTunes cards to a decorated fake general, to the woman who helped the Pentagon shut down one of the largest military impersonation fraud rings in history. Thank you for being here. I believe this story will help you or someone you love recognize military romance scams and the red flags we all need to know. So this is the perfect moment. Hit that like button and subscribe. You guarantee all the next stories without having to search for them. Now, let's begin. I met General Michael Davidson on Facebook in March 2024, 3 years after my husband Robert died from a sudden heart attack. Robert and I had been married for 38 years. We'd built a life in Raleigh, North Carolina, raised 2 sons, celebrated grandchildren, planned a retirement we never got to enjoy together. After he died, I felt like I was living in a house full of memories but empty of future. My friend Linda suggested I try social media to connect with people. Not dating, she insisted. Just conversation. You can't spend every evening alone, Carol. So I created a Facebook account, joined some widow support groups, posted occasional photos of my garden. I wasn't looking for romance. I was just trying to remember how to be a person instead of half of a couple. General Davidson's friend request came with a message that felt different from the usual random contacts. Mrs. Carroll, I noticed your post about supporting military families. As a career soldier currently deployed in Syria, I wanted to thank you for your compassion. It means more than you know to those of us serving far from home. It was respectful, articulate, and exactly the kind of acknowledgement that touched my heart. His profile showed a distinguished man in his late 50s wearing army dress blues with rows of medals across his chest. The photos depicted him at military ceremonies, shaking hands with other officers, standing beside helicopters in desert landscapes. His bio listed him as a 3-star general, 35 years of service, currently commanding peacekeeping operations in Syria. He had a grown daughter, was widowed 5 years ago when his wife died in a car accident, and loved classic literature and military history. We started messaging daily. He asked about my life, my late husband, how I was coping with grief. He shared stories about military service, the challenges of command, the loneliness of deployment, the weight of responsibility for soldiers under his leadership. He was intelligent, thoughtful, and seemed genuinely interested in my thoughts about everything from politics to gardening. Carol, you have a wisdom that comes from truly living, he wrote one evening. Most people I encounter want something from me, a favor, a connection, a stepping stone. With you, I can just be Michael. Not the general, not the commander, just a man who's tired of war and dreams of peace. The words reached something deep inside me. Robert had been a high school principal. Everyone always wanted something from him, too. He used to say I was his safe harbor, the one person who loved him for himself, not his position. Hearing similar words from Michael felt like recognition, like someone understood what I'd lost. By May, we were talking on the phone, always audio only, never video. The military communications infrastructure here is extremely limited, he explained. Video calls require bandwidth we simply don't have in active conflict zones. I hope you understand. I'd love nothing more than to see your beautiful face while we talk. His voice was deep, authoritative, with a slight southern accent that reminded me of Robert's North Carolina drawl. He spoke about visiting me when his deployment ended. I have 3 months left on this rotation. Then I'm coming home to the States, and I'd like to spend my leave getting to know you in person. Walking through your garden, meeting your family, maybe even convincing you to take a trip with me. Somewhere peaceful, no uniforms, no obligations. The anticipation became something to live for. I told my sons about Michael. They were cautiously supportive but concerned. My older son, James, who works in IT security, asked pointed questions. "Mom, have you video called him? Have you verified he's actually who he claims to be?" Military romance scams are extremely common. I brushed off his concerns. "James, I'm not some naive teenager. I can tell the difference between a real person and a scammer. We talk for hours. He knows everything about our family, about your father, about me. You can't fake that kind of connection." But James's questions planted small seeds of doubt that I tried to ignore. Why hadn't we video called? Why did Michael's phone number show up as unknown on caller ID? Why were all his emails sent from generic Gmail accounts instead of official military addresses? Then came the first request for money. It was early June, 2 months into our relationship. Michael called, his voice strained with stress. "Carol, I'm in a difficult situation. I need to ask for help, and I'm embarrassed to even bring this up. My military pay has been frozen due to an administrative error in the Defense Finance and Accounting Service system. It happens sometimes with deployed personnel. Paperwork gets lost, accounts get flagged. I've been working with my finance officer to resolve it, but it could take weeks." "I'm so sorry, Michael. How are you managing?" "That's the problem. I have soldiers under my command who need supplies, medical equipment, communication devices, basic necessities that our supply chain hasn't delivered. I can't let my men suffer because of Pentagon bureaucracy. I need to purchase these items privately and get reimbursed later. But with my accounts frozen, I don't have access to funds." My heart broke for him. This was a man dedicated to his soldiers, willing to use his own money to care for them. "How much do you need?" "I hate to ask this, Carol, but if you could help with $3,000, I could purchase what we need through local suppliers. I'll repay you the moment my accounts are unfrozen, probably within 2 weeks. I'll even add interest to thank you for helping my soldiers." $3,000 was a significant amount, but I had savings, and this wasn't for Michael. It was for soldiers serving our country. "Of course I'll help. How should I send it?" "The easiest way is iTunes gift cards. I know that sounds unusual, but in this region, gift cards are the most reliable currency. Local suppliers accept them because they can resell them internationally. It's actually common practice in conflict zones where traditional banking is unreliable." I hesitated. Gift cards for military supplies seemed strange. But Michael explained it with such authority, such detail about supply chain logistics and local economic conditions, that it made sense. Or rather, I wanted it to make sense. I went to Target that afternoon and purchased $3,000 worth of iTunes cards in various denominations. I photographed the codes and texted them to Michael. Within minutes, he called back, his voice filled with relief and gratitude. "Carol, you just saved lives. I'm not exaggerating. You've made it possible for me to protect my soldiers. I'll never forget this kindness." For 48 hours, I felt like a hero. I'd helped the military, supported the man I cared about, made a tangible difference. Then Michael called again. There was another emergency. More supplies needed. Another $2,000 in gift cards. And that's when the pattern began that would eventually cost me $47,000 and nearly destroy my faith in human connection. But it would also lead me to discover something that would help protect thousands of other women from the same devastation. Was I falling deeper into a trap? Or would I find the strength to question what I was being told? Over the next 3 months, the requests became routine. Every 2 weeks, Michael would contact me with a new crisis. Medical emergencies for soldiers, equipment failures, communication system repairs, security clearances for travel, even a situation where he claimed his daughter needed emergency funds for a study abroad program that fell through. Each request was accompanied by detailed explanations, official-sounding terminology, and emotional appeals that made me feel essential to his mission. "Carol, I can't tell you how much your support means. Most people back home don't understand the reality of military service, but you've proven yourself to be a true patriot, a real partner." The amounts varied. $2,000 here, $3,500 there, once even $7,000 for what he called a classified equipment acquisition that couldn't go through normal military channels. Always gift cards, iTunes, Google Play, occasionally Amazon. He'd send me to different stores to avoid purchase limits. Target, Walmart, Best Buy, CVS. I became familiar with the gift card sections of every major retailer in Raleigh. My sons grew increasingly concerned. James confronted me in July. "Mom, I looked up this General Michael Davidson. There's no 3-star general by that name currently serving in Syria or anywhere else. I checked the Pentagon's public directory of flag officers. He doesn't exist." I felt defensive, almost angry. Maybe it's classified. Maybe his identity is protected because of the nature of his mission. "You don't know everything about military operations, James." "Mom, that's not how it works. General officers are public figures. Their names, ranks, and assignments are documented. And even if his identity were somehow classified, he wouldn't be asking his girlfriend to buy iTunes cards for military operations. That's not how military procurement works. This is a scam." But I couldn't accept it. To admit Michael was fake meant admitting I'd been fooled. It meant acknowledging that the connection I'd felt, the late-night conversations, the shared vulnerabilities, the promises of a future together, were all manufactured lies. It meant facing the reality that I'd spent over $30,000 on a fiction. My younger son David took a different approach. He didn't argue or present evidence. Instead, he asked gentle questions. "Mom, what does your gut tell you? When you look at the whole situation objectively, does it feel right? Does it match what you know about how the world works?" Those questions haunted me. Late at night, when Michael wasn't texting or calling, I'd review our relationship timeline. Why had the financial requests started only after I was emotionally invested? Why did every problem require immediate payment via untraceable gift cards? Why couldn't he video call even once in 6 months? I tried asking Michael directly. "I'd really love to see your face. Just once. Can't you find a way to make a video call work? Even for 30 seconds? His response was smooth, practiced. "Carol, I want nothing more. But you have to understand the security protocols here. Video communications can be intercepted, and as a commanding officer, my identity needs protection. We've had incidents where enemy forces identified and targeted leaders through intercepted video calls. I can't risk my soldiers' safety for personal desires. I hope you understand." I did understand. Or rather, I wanted to understand. Every excuse seemed plausible because I needed them to be plausible. The breaking point came in late August. Michael called with urgency in his voice. "Carol, I have incredible news. My deployment is ending early. The Pentagon is reassigning me stateside. I'll be home in 2 weeks. We can finally be together. No more long distance, no more deployments. Just you and me building the life we've talked about." My heart soared. Finally, all the waiting, all the sacrifice would be worth it. We'd meet in person, and I'd prove to my sons that Michael was real, that our connection was genuine. "But there's one complication," Michael continued. "To process my early reassignment and secure my retirement benefits, I need to pay a military clearance fee to the Defense Finance and Accounting Service. It's standard procedure for early deployment exits. Basically, an administrative processing fee to expedite the paperwork and ensure my pension and retirement accounts transfer correctly." "How much?" $8,500. "I know it's a lot, Carol, but this is the last time I'll ever need to ask. Once this is paid, my military accounts will be fully accessible, my pension will start processing, and I'll have all the resources I need. This is literally the final hurdle before we can start our life together." I stared at my phone. Michael's voice still in my ear, asking for $8,500 in iTunes and Google Play cards, and something shifted. A military clearance fee paid in gift cards? Retirement benefits contingent on iTunes purchases? Even with all my willingness to believe, even with all my emotional investment, the absurdity finally broke through. "Michael, why can't you pay this fee through official military channels? Why does it have to be gift cards?" Brief silence. Then, "Carol, I explained this. The gift card system is how we process rapid payments in overseas locations. It's not. I know it's not. The military doesn't operate on iTunes cards, Michael. I need you to explain this in a way that actually makes sense." His tone shifted. Less warm, more businesslike. "Carol, I don't have time to debate logistics. I need this payment processed by tomorrow, or I lose the early reassignment opportunity." Are you willing to help me or not? That ultimatum, the sudden coldness, the pressure, the implied threat that our relationship depended on my compliance, finally triggered something I'd been suppressing for months. I need some time to think about this, Michael. Let me call you back tomorrow. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, and for the first time in 8 months, instead of calling Michael back or sending money, I did something different. So I decided to check his background online. I opened my laptop and typed into Google, General Michael Davidson, Syria, U.S. Army. The results that flooded my screen would shatter everything I'd believed and set me on a path that would lead straight to the Pentagon itself. What would I discover that would change everything? The first search result was from the U.S. Army's official website, a page titled, How to Report Military Impersonation and Romance Scams. My stomach dropped as I read, Scammers frequently impersonate military personnel to exploit vulnerable individuals, particularly through online romance scams. Red flags include requests for money via gift cards, inability to video call, claims of frozen military accounts, and requests for fees related to deployment, leave, or retirement processing. Every single red flag described my relationship with Michael. I clicked through to the Army Criminal Investigation Division website. They had an entire section dedicated to military romance scams, complete with victim testimonies, examples of fake profiles, and instructions for reporting fraud. One victim's story was eerily similar to mine. He claimed to be a general in Afghanistan. Over 6 months, I sent $52,000 in iTunes and Amazon gift cards for various emergencies. When I finally asked for a video call, he disappeared. My throat tightened. I typed General Michael Davidson into the search bar on the Pentagon's public directory of flag officers. No results. I tried variations. General M. Davidson. Major General Davidson, Syria. Lieutenant General Davidson deployed. Nothing. I searched for the photos Michael had used on his profile. Using reverse image search, I uploaded his pictures. The one in dress blues, the one beside the helicopter, the ceremony photo. Results flooded in. Every image belonged to a real Army officer named Colonel James Bradford, who'd actually served in Iraq in 2015. His photos had been stolen and used across dozens of fake profiles with different names. General Michael Davidson, General David Richardson, Colonel Robert Mitchell. The real Colonel Bradford had even posted a warning on his public Facebook page. My image has been stolen by scammers. If someone using my photos contacts you asking for money, it is not me. Please report it immediately. I sat in my kitchen, the laptop screen blurring through tears, as the full scope of my mistake crystallized. Every conversation, every intimate disclosure, every moment I'd felt seen and valued, all of it had been manufactured by someone whose only goal was extracting money. The Michael I'd fallen for didn't exist. I spent the next 3 hours in a spiral of research. I found forums dedicated to military romance scam victims. Thousands of posts from women across the world. Similar stories, similar patterns, similar devastation. The scammers had scripts, templates, entire databases of stolen military photos. They worked in coordinated groups, often from West Africa, targeting lonely women with precision and patience. One post made me freeze. My scammer also used the name General Michael Davidson. I sent him $38,000 over 7 months. When I reported him to the FBI, I learned he was part of a network that had victimized over 200 women. If you've been contacted by this identity, please report it. Your information could help catch these criminals. I wasn't alone. Michael Davidson was an identity used repeatedly across multiple victims. We were all part of the same operation. At 11 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Michael. Carol, I haven't heard from you. The payment needs to be processed tonight. Tomorrow is too late. Please don't let me down when I'm this close to coming home to you. I stared at the message, rage replacing heartbreak. This person, whoever they actually were, thought I was still under their control. They thought one more emotional manipulation would work. I typed back, I know you're not a general. I know you're a scammer. I've reported you to the FBI, the Army CID, and I'm going to make sure every woman you've targeted knows the truth. The response came within seconds. "Carol, I don't know what you're talking about. Why would you say these things? I love you. We've built something real. Please don't let paranoia destroy what we have." The audacity was breathtaking. Even confronted with exposure, he was still trying to manipulate me. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and went to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. I filed a detailed report. Every conversation, every payment, every red flag I'd ignored. I provided screenshots of messages, records of gift card purchases, the fake photos, the phone numbers he'd used. Then I did something that felt both terrifying and empowering. I called the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Division's tip line. A recording instructed me to leave detailed information about military impersonation cases. I spoke for 15 minutes, outlining everything: the fake general identity, the gift card requests, the stolen photos of Colonel Bradford, the timing and pattern of financial manipulation. At 1 a.m., exhausted and emotionally raw, I finally went to bed, but sleep was impossible. I kept replaying every conversation, every moment I'd believed the lies. How had I been so blind? How had someone so intelligent, so experienced, fallen for something so obvious in retrospect? The next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Mrs. Carol Henderson?" "Yes." "This is Special Agent Marcus Williams from the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command. You filed a report last night regarding military impersonation and fraud. I'd like to discuss your case. Are you available to talk?" My heart raced. "Yes, absolutely. First, I want to say thank you for reporting this. Military romance scams are a major problem, and victim cooperation is essential for investigations. Based on the information you provided, we believe your case connects to an ongoing operation we've been tracking. The identity General Michael Davidson has been used to defraud at least 47 women that we know of, totaling over $800,000 in losses. The number hit me like physical blow. 47 women, $800,000. I was one small piece of a massive criminal enterprise. Mrs. Henderson, we'd like your help. We're working with the FBI, Interpol, and Nigerian law enforcement to dismantle this network. But we need detailed victim testimony, financial records, communication logs, everything you can provide. Would you be willing to cooperate fully with this investigation?" I thought about the other 46 women. I thought about future victims who might be targeted if this network continued operating. "Yes, I'll do whatever you need." "Excellent. I'm going to connect you with FBI agent Sarah Reeves, who's leading the financial crimes component of this case. Between the Army CID and FBI, we're building a comprehensive prosecution. Your information, particularly the gift card transaction records, could be crucial evidence. Over the next week, I became deeply involved in the investigation. Agent Reeves walked me through providing evidence: bank statements showing gift card purchases, screenshots of every conversation with Michael, phone records, email headers that could help trace the scammer's location. The FBI's analysis revealed that Michael's phone numbers traced to internet calling services routed through Nigeria and Ghana. The email accounts were created using VPNs that masked the true location, but digital forensics identified patterns linking them to a known fraud syndicate operating from Lagos. More importantly, my gift card codes provided a traceable trail. The FBI could track where the cards were redeemed, primarily in Nigeria, but also in Ghana, South Africa, and surprisingly, some in the United States. This suggested a network of money mules who helped convert the gift cards into cash. Agent Reeves put me in contact with 3 other victims of the same General Michael Davidson scam. We created a group chat, sharing our experiences, comparing timelines, providing mutual support. The similarities were staggering. Same photos, same stories, same progression of financial requests. Linda from Ohio. He told me his wife died in a training accident. That's why he understood grief. I sent him $41,000 over 9 months. Patricia from Texas. He said his daughter was studying medicine in London. Same story he told you, Carol. I sent $28,000. Jennifer from Washington. He asked me to marry him. Sent a photo of a ring he'd supposedly bought. asked for $6,000 in gift cards to process the international shipping. I almost sent it before my sister talked me out of it. We were all educated, professional women. Linda was a retired nurse. Patricia owned a small business. Jennifer was a college professor. We weren't naive or stupid. We were lonely, grieving, and targeted by experts in psychological manipulation. But here's what the scammer didn't anticipate. When you victimize women who've survived loss, raised families, built careers, and navigated life's challenges, you're not attacking weak targets. You're creating enemies who know how to fight back. And we were about to show him exactly what that meant. What would our combined strength uncover? The investigation was about to take a shocking turn. Thank you for staying with this story. If you believe in protecting others from scams like this, hit that like button and subscribe. You guarantee all the next stories without needing to search. Now, back to the story. The FBI's investigation took an unexpected turn in late September when Agent Reeves called with startling news. Carol, we've traced some of your gift card redemptions to locations in the United States, specifically a series of redemptions in Baltimore, Maryland, and Houston, Texas. This suggests domestic accomplices, which gives us jurisdiction for arrests on U.S. soil. This was significant. Romance scammers operating from Africa were nearly impossible to prosecute. But Americans helping facilitate the fraud could face federal charges: wire fraud, conspiracy, money laundering. We're coordinating with local FBI field offices to identify and apprehend these money mules, Agent Reeves continued. Many of them don't even realize they're part of a criminal operation. They think they're doing legitimate remote work, mystery shopping, or payment processing jobs. But once we arrest them and explain what they've actually been facilitating, most cooperate. Within a week, the FBI arrested 3 individuals: a 24-year-old college dropout in Baltimore named Terrence Jackson, a 31-year-old single mother in Houston named Maya Rodriguez, and a 55-year-old unemployed warehouse worker in Atlanta named Dennis Cooper. All had been recruited through online job postings offering easy money for gift card redemption services. Agent Reeves allowed me to listen to Terrence's interview recording. His confusion and fear were palpable. I thought I was working for a legitimate company. They hired me on Indeed, sent me a contract, paid me through PayPal. My job was to receive gift card codes via email, redeem them online, use the funds to purchase cryptocurrency, and send the crypto to a wallet address they provided. They said it was for international business transactions. I had no idea it was stolen money from scam victims. The FBI offered him a deal: full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. Terrence provided everything: email communications with his employers, the cryptocurrency wallet addresses, even the phone numbers used to coordinate operations. This intelligence revealed a sophisticated structure. The West African scammers would extract gift card codes from victims like me. Those codes would be forwarded to American money mules who'd redeem them. The mules would then convert the funds to cryptocurrency, harder to trace and easier to transfer internationally. Finally, the crypto would be sent to wallets controlled by the scammers, who'd convert it to local currency in Nigeria. It was a layered operation designed to obscure the money trail and exploit people at multiple points: romance scam victims providing the funds, desperate Americans serving as unknowing middlemen, and West African fraudsters orchestrating everything from thousands of miles away. But the cryptocurrency wallets provided a new lead. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit specialized in tracking blockchain transactions. Agent Reeves worked with specialists who analyzed the wallet addresses Terrence had provided. They discovered connections to dozens of other fraud operations, not just romance scams, but also business email compromise schemes, lottery scams, and fake charity frauds. Carol, this is bigger than we initially thought, Agent Reeves said. The network that victimized you is part of a major organized crime syndicate. We're talking about an operation generating millions of dollars annually across multiple fraud types. Your case, and your willingness to cooperate, has opened up an investigation that could dismantle a significant portion of their infrastructure. Meanwhile, the victim support group I'd formed with Linda, Patricia, and Jennifer had grown. Word spread through scam survivor forums, and soon we had 23 members. all women who'd been targeted by variations of the deployed military officer scam. We created a comprehensive database documenting our experiences. Fake names used, photos stolen, timelines of financial requests, phone numbers, email addresses, cryptocurrency wallet addresses. This crowdsourced intelligence proved invaluable to the FBI. Patterns emerged that single victims couldn't see. We discovered that many of us had been contacted within similar timeframes, suggesting coordinated campaigns. The scammers would launch waves of fake profiles, target hundreds of women simultaneously, then focus efforts on the most responsive victims. We also identified psychological patterns in how they built trust. Every scammer used similar techniques: immediate emotional intensity, rapid progression toward love declarations, detailed personal backstories that created false intimacy, and carefully timed financial requests that started small and escalated gradually. Linda documented everything in a spreadsheet: victim names, amounts lost, scammer identities used, timeline of requests, red flags missed. She titled it the General Davidson Victims Database and shared it with law enforcement. Patricia, using her business background, analyzed the financial logistics. They're optimizing their operations like any business would. They target women in specific age ranges with specific financial profiles. They use A/B testing on their approach scripts. They have customer service-style response protocols for when victims express doubt. This isn't random criminal behavior. This is professionalized fraud. Jennifer, the college professor, wrote an academic paper analyzing the psychological manipulation tactics. She submitted it to a criminology journal and was invited to present at a conference on financial fraud and elder abuse. We were transforming from victims into experts. Our pain was becoming purpose. But the most significant development came in early October, when Agent Reeves called with news that would change everything. Carol, we've identified the primary operator behind the General Michael Davidson identity. His real name is Chukwudi Okafor, 34 years old, operates from Lagos, Nigeria. We've been coordinating with Nigerian Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and they're preparing to make an arrest. But there's something unusual about this case that I need to discuss with you. My heart pounded. What is it? Chukwudi doesn't just run romance scams. He's actually a former employee of a legitimate Nigerian tech company. He has a computer science degree, speaks multiple languages, and according to our intelligence, he's considered something of a prodigy in cybercrime circles. He's sophisticated, careful, and he's trained others in his methods. Taking him down won't just stop one scammer, it'll disrupt an entire training and mentorship network. So what happens now? Now we need bait. We need him to make a mistake that gives Nigerian authorities grounds for arrest. And that's where you come in, Carol. We need you to re-establish contact with him. The request hung in the air between us. Agent Reeves wanted me to voluntarily re-enter the nightmare I'd just escaped, to pretend I still believed the lies, to give Chukwudi one more chance to incriminate himself. Could I do it? Could I face the person who'd manipulated me so completely, knowing it was all an act? The investigation was about to test me in ways I never imagined. Agent Reeves outlined the plan carefully. I would send a message to Michael apologizing for my previous accusations, claiming I'd been stressed and paranoid, and that I wanted to make things right. The goal was to re-engage him, get him to continue the scam, and document additional evidence that Nigerian authorities could use for prosecution. We need him to make explicit statements about the fraud, Agent Reeves explained. If he admits the gift cards are for purposes other than what he originally claimed, if he reveals details about his operation, if he coordinates with accomplices while we're monitoring, any of that strengthens the criminal case. My hands trembled as I typed the message. Michael, I'm so sorry. I was scared and confused. My sons have been putting ideas in my head, making me doubt everything. But I know what we have is real. I know you love me. I want to help with the clearance fee. Please forgive me for doubting you. I hit send before I could overthink it. Within 30 minutes, he responded. Carol, my love, I understand. The stress of separation, the distance between us, it makes people doubt. But we're so close to being together. The clearance fee is still needed. $8,500 in iTunes and Google Play cards. Once this is processed, I'll be on a flight to Raleigh within the week. We can finally start our future. Reading his words, knowing they were calculated lies, felt like swallowing poison. But I continued the charade. I'll get the cards tomorrow. I just want you home safely. There's one more thing, Carol. I need you to send the card codes to a different number this time. My military phone was compromised, so I'm using a secured line. It's important for operational security. He provided a new WhatsApp number. This was exactly what the FBI wanted. Evidence of him using multiple communication channels, suggesting consciousness of criminal activity and efforts to avoid detection. Over the next 3 days, I maintained the fiction while the FBI monitored every communication. Agent Reeves had set up recording equipment in my home so they could document every phone call. Michael called frequently, his voice warm and reassuring, coaching me through purchasing the gift cards without triggering store security protocols. Buy them from different stores, Carol. $500 limits per purchase usually don't raise flags. Target, Walmart, Best Buy, CVS, spread it across several locations. And if anyone asks why you're buying so many, tell them they're gifts for your grandchildren. I followed his instructions while wearing a wire. The FBI documented everything: his guidance on evading anti-fraud measures, his coaching on lying to store employees, his instructions for photographing the card codes in specific ways to ensure clarity. On the 3rd day, I sent him the photos of card codes worth $8,500. Within hours, the FBI confirmed the cards were being redeemed in Lagos, Nigeria, traced to a specific internet cafe that Chukwudi Okafor was known to frequent. But then Michael made an unexpected move. Carol, I have incredible news. The clearance went through faster than expected. I'm actually already in the United States. I landed in New York this morning. I'll be in Raleigh tomorrow afternoon. We can finally meet. My blood ran cold. This was unprecedented. Romance scammers never met victims in person. The entire operation relied on distance and anonymity. Michael, that's wonderful. Where should I meet you? I'll text you the details tomorrow morning. I can't wait to hold you, Carol. After all these months of talking, I'll finally see your beautiful face in person. I immediately called Agent Reeves. He says he's in New York. Says he'll be here tomorrow. That's impossible. We've had intelligence indicating Chukwudi is still in Lagos. Either this is a stalling tactic or... She paused. Or someone else from his network is actually in the U.S. and plans to meet you. Either way, we need to prepare for both scenarios. The FBI quickly assembled a plan. If someone actually showed up to meet me, they'd be arrested immediately. If it was a stalling tactic leading to another scam variation, we'd document the deception and add it to the criminal case. That night, I barely slept. The possibility of meeting the person who'd manipulated me was both terrifying and grimly satisfying. Part of me wanted to look him in the eyes, to see if there'd be any recognition of the harm he'd caused. Another part just wanted justice. Cold, legal, undeniable justice. The next morning, Michael texted, "My flight to Raleigh is delayed due to weather. I won't arrive until this evening. But here's what I need you to do. I'm traveling with sensitive military documents that need to be stored securely. Can you rent a safety deposit box at your bank? I'll need you to make a deposit on it. Around $2,500, which I'll reimburse immediately when I arrive." And there it was. The meeting was fake. This was just another scam variation. Build anticipation of an in-person meeting, then create a last-minute financial emergency that required immediate payment. But he'd made a critical mistake. By claiming to be physically in the United States while actually operating from Nigeria, he'd created provable evidence of intentional deception. The FBI could demonstrate that every element of his story was fabricated: the deployment, the rank, the identity, and now the travel. I responded as instructed by Agent Reeves. "Michael, I'm confused. You said you'd be here this afternoon. Now you're asking for more money before you even arrive. I need to understand what's happening." His response came quickly, and for the first time there was an edge of irritation in his words. "Carol, do you want me to come or not? I'm dealing with complications here. If you can't trust me enough to help with a simple deposit, maybe I should just return to base and forget this visit." It was emotional blackmail, the same tactic he'd used dozens of times before. But this time, I wasn't falling for it. "I want to help, Michael, but I need to see you on video call first, right now. If you're really in New York, you can make a video call. I just need to see your face." Silence. 10 minutes passed, 20, then a message. "My phone camera is broken. I'll buy a new phone when I land in Raleigh." I typed my response carefully, knowing the FBI was monitoring. "Michael, I don't think you're who you say you are. I think you're a scammer named Chukwudi Okafor operating from Lagos, and I think you've been lying to me for 8 months." The response was immediate and shocking. "You're right." 2 words that changed everything. Agent Reeves's voice came through my earpiece. "Keep him talking. Get him to say more." I typed with shaking hands. "Why did you do this to me?" His response came in a long message that was equal parts confession and justification. "Because it's business, Carol. You have money. I need money. In Nigeria, there are no jobs, no opportunities, no future. Scamming is survival. You lost some savings. I feed my family. That's the exchange. Don't take it personally. You were just a client who paid for a service. Fantasy, companionship, attention. I provided exactly what you wanted until you didn't want to pay anymore." The FBI had everything they needed. A full confession, admission of fraud, acknowledgement of deception, and a cold articulation of intent. Agent Reeves made the call to Nigerian authorities immediately. Within hours, the Nigerian Economic and Financial Crimes Commission raided Chukwudi Okafor's location in Lagos. They arrested him along with 4 associates who worked in his operation. They seized computers, phones, hard drives containing databases of victims, and financial records showing the full scope of the fraud network. Agent Reeves called me that evening. "We got him, Carol. He's in custody. This is a major win. Not just for your case, but for the hundreds of victims he's targeted over the years." I should have felt triumphant, but mostly I just felt exhausted. The person I'd cared about had never existed. The confession wasn't remorse. It was just another manipulation, an attempt to make me feel stupid for expecting basic human decency. But here's what Chukwudi didn't understand. His confession had given me something invaluable, proof that I hadn't been stupid or naive. I'd been targeted by a professional criminal who made his living exploiting human vulnerability. There was no shame in that. The shame belonged entirely to him, and I was about to make sure the whole world knew it. What would I do next to turn my pain into protection for others? The mission was just beginning. If this story is helping you recognize the signs of romance scams, hit that subscribe button now. You'll get every new story that exposes these criminals and protects potential victims. Now let's continue. The arrest of Chukwudi Okafor triggered a cascade of developments I hadn't anticipated. Within days, international media picked up the story. Romance scammer, posing as U.S. Army general arrested in Lagos. My name was kept confidential in official reports, but the case details were public, and suddenly military romance scams were front-page news. The U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command issued a public statement commending the FBI's work and urging other victims to come forward. They included statistics that staggered me. Military romance scams cost victims an estimated $200 million annually in the United States alone, with thousands of cases reported each year and countless more going unreported due to victim embarrassment. Agent Reeves connected me with the Army's Media Relations Office. They wanted to know if I'd be willing to participate in a public awareness campaign. "Carol, your story could help prevent others from experiencing what you went through. Would you consider doing media interviews, educational videos, maybe even testimony before Congress about the scope of these scams?" The thought terrified me. Going public meant admitting to friends, neighbors, extended family that I'd been scammed out of $47,000. It meant becoming the poster child for woman who fell for obvious fraud. But it also meant potential protection for others. I thought about the women in our victim support group. Linda had attempted suicide after discovering her scam. Patricia's sons had briefly pursued legal action to have her declared financially incompetent. Jennifer had suffered a minor stroke from the stress. We weren't just financially victimized. We were psychologically devastated. "I'll do it," I told Agent Reeves. "Whatever you need." My first media interview was with a local Raleigh news station. The reporter, a woman in her 30s named Amanda Chen, handled the story with unexpected sensitivity. Instead of focusing on my gullibility, she framed it as a criminal justice story. Sophisticated fraud operations targeting vulnerable Americans, enabled by technology and international anonymity. The interview aired on a Thursday evening. By Friday morning, my phone was flooded with messages. Some were supportive, friends expressing sympathy, strangers thanking me for speaking out. But others were cruel. Anonymous emails calling me stupid, social media comments mocking my desperation, even a handwritten letter left in my mailbox saying I deserved to lose my money for being a foolish old woman looking for love in all the wrong places. The cruelty stung. But it also revealed something important. Victim blaming was a major reason why romance scam survivors stayed silent. Speaking out meant enduring public judgment, which discouraged others from reporting fraud and seeking help. I decided to address this directly. I wrote an opinion piece for the Raleigh News and Observer titled, "Why Blaming Romance Scam Victims Helps the Criminals Win." The core argument: every time we mock victims for being stupid, we create an environment where people would rather lose money than face embarrassment by reporting. This helps scammers operate with impunity. The piece went viral. It was picked up by the Washington Post, shared across social media, and even read into the congressional record by a representative who was sponsoring anti-fraud legislation. Within a week, I received interview requests from NPR, CNN, and 60 Minutes. The 60 Minutes segment was particularly impactful. They interviewed me, Agent Reeves, the real Colonel Bradford whose photos had been stolen, and even included a recorded interview with Chukwudi Okafor conducted by a journalist in Lagos. Chukwudi showed no remorse. When asked about the harm he'd caused, he shrugged. These women are not victims. They pay for entertainment, for attention. I provide that. They're adults making choices. The segment also featured other victims who'd been targeted by Chukwudi's network. We discovered there were at least 127 confirmed victims across 15 countries, with total losses exceeding $2.3 million. The scope was staggering. But the segment's most powerful moment came when Colonel Bradford spoke directly to camera. My image has been used to defraud hundreds of women. These scammers stole my face, my uniform, my identity, and weaponized it against vulnerable people. To every victim who was deceived by my stolen photos, I'm sorry. Not because I did anything wrong, but because the uniform I've proudly worn for 27 years was turned into a tool for exploitation. His words validated something I'd felt but couldn't articulate. The scammers didn't just steal our money. They stole symbols we'd been taught to trust: military service, patriotism, honor, and corrupted them. They weaponized our respect for military sacrifice against us. After the 60 Minutes segment aired, I received over 800 emails from other victims. Most were thanking me for speaking out. But some were from women currently being targeted, who recognized the warning signs after watching the segment and needed help escaping. One email particularly struck me. It was from a 58-year-old widow in Oregon named Susan. "I've been talking to someone claiming to be a Navy admiral for 3 months. He's asked for $12,000 in gift cards for emergency medical supplies. After watching your interview, I recognized every manipulation tactic you described. I haven't sent the money yet. You literally saved me from making the same mistake. Thank you for your courage in speaking out." That email became my anchor. The embarrassment, the judgment, the public exposure, all of it was worth it if even one person was protected. The victim support group I'd formed with Linda, Patricia, and Jennifer evolved into a formal organization. We called it Stolen Valor Victim Advocacy, a name that acknowledged both the military impersonation element and the psychological theft these scammers committed. We created a website, a hotline, educational materials, and a database of known scammer identities and tactics. The Pentagon took notice. In November, I received a formal invitation to speak at the Army's annual Criminal Investigation Command Conference. The audience would include military investigators, FBI agents, and international law enforcement partners focused on transnational fraud. I was terrified. These were professionals, investigators and prosecutors who dealt with sophisticated criminals daily. What could I, a widow from North Carolina who'd been scammed, possibly teach them? But Agent Reeves encouraged me. Carol, you understand the victim psychology in ways we can't. You can explain why intelligent people fall for these scams, what vulnerabilities the scammers exploit, how the manipulation works from the inside. That perspective is invaluable for building more effective interventions. I prepared for weeks. I reviewed every message Chukwudi had sent, analyzing the psychological techniques he'd used. I interviewed other victims about their experiences. I researched the neuroscience of loneliness and how it affects decision-making. I built a presentation titled Inside the Mind of a Romance Scam Victim: Understanding Manipulation, Vulnerability, and Recovery. The conference was in Fort Belvoir, Virginia. I stood in front of 200 law enforcement professionals and shared my story in clinical detail: the initial contact, the gradual escalation, the financial requests, the cognitive dissonance when evidence contradicted my beliefs, the shame after discovery. I showed actual messages from Chukwudi, breaking down the manipulation tactics, creating urgency to bypass rational thinking, using military terminology to establish false credibility, mixing genuine emotional support with financial exploitation, weaponizing the victim's compassion and sense of duty. Then I addressed the victim-blaming issue directly. When you treat romance scam victims as stupid or desperate, you're not just being cruel, you're being tactically counterproductive. Shame prevents reporting. Reporting prevents investigation. Investigation stops criminals. Every time you blame a victim, you're helping the scammers. The room was silent. Then someone in the back started clapping. It spread through the audience. A standing ovation from military investigators and FBI agents. Multiple people approached me afterward, sharing their own family members' experiences with scams, thanking me for reframing the issue, asking for resources to share. A brigadier general who oversaw military criminal investigations pulled me aside. "Mrs. Henderson, what you've done here, sharing your experience, educating others, building victim support systems, this is service. You've helped protect soldiers' reputations and protected vulnerable Americans. On behalf of the United States Army, thank you." I cried in the bathroom afterward, not from sadness, but from the unexpected validation. I'd spent months feeling stupid, ashamed, diminished by my experience. But somehow I'd transformed that pain into something meaningful. The conference led to another opportunity. The FBI's Victim Services Division asked me to help develop training materials for victim assistance coordinators. They wanted to create protocols specifically for romance scam survivors, how to approach them without judgment, what resources to provide, how to support their recovery while gathering evidence. I worked with a team of FBI psychologists and victim advocates to create a comprehensive guide. We included scripts for initial contact, educational materials about manipulation tactics, connections to therapy resources, financial recovery options, and step-by-step reporting procedures. The guide was distributed to FBI field offices nationwide and shared with international law enforcement partners. It became the model for victim-centered fraud investigation, treating survivors as valuable witnesses rather than embarrassing statistics. But the work that mattered most to me was direct victim support. Through Stolen Valor Victim Advocacy, I spoke with hundreds of women in various stages of romance scam relationships. Some had already sent money and were drowning in denial. Others were just beginning to suspect something was wrong. A few had discovered the truth and were contemplating suicide. One call in particular changed how I approached the work. A woman named Barbara from Tennessee, 71 years old, called our hotline at 2 a.m. She was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. I sent him everything. My retirement savings, my late husband's life insurance, money I'd set aside for my grandchildren's college, $127,000. And tonight I finally did a reverse image search. He's not real. None of it was real. I have nothing left, and I can't face my family. I stayed on the phone with Barbara for 3 hours. I didn't tell her it would be okay, because it wouldn't, not immediately. Instead, I told her the truth. Barbara, right now you're in the absolute worst moment. You've just discovered the truth, and the pain is unbearable. But I promise you, this is the lowest point. Every day from now on, you'll be one step further from this moment. The shame will lessen. The clarity will increase. And eventually you'll realize that being deceived by a professional criminal doesn't define your intelligence or worth. We talked until sunrise. I shared my own story, the specific moments of manipulation I'd fallen for, the excuses I'd made, the evidence I'd ignored. I told her about the other victims, nurses, teachers, business owners, even a retired police detective. I explained that these scammers were experts, that their full-time job was exploiting human psychology, that falling for their tactics didn't make us stupid, it made us human. By the time we hung up, Barbara had agreed to contact the FBI to see a therapist and to call me back in a week. She did call back. And the week after that. And the week after that. Eventually, she became a volunteer with our organization, helping other victims through their darkest moments. That pattern repeated dozens of times. Victims became survivors. Survivors became advocates. Advocates became warriors fighting back against the industry that had targeted them. My sons watched this transformation with a mixture of pride and concern. James, who'd been the first to warn me about the scam, worried about my obsessive focus on victim advocacy. "Mom, you're working 18-hour days. You're not sleeping enough. You need to take care of yourself too." He was right. I'd thrown myself into the work so completely that I'd neglected my own healing. I was so busy helping others process their trauma that I hadn't fully processed my own. David suggested I see the same therapist he'd been seeing for anxiety. Dr. Rachel Morrison specialized in trauma recovery and had experience with fraud victims. Our first session was brutal. She asked me to describe in detail the moment I'd realized Michael wasn't real. As I spoke, I started crying. Not gentle tears, but deep guttural sobs I'd been suppressing for months. "Carol, you've been performing strength," Dr. Morrison said gently. "For your sons, for other victims, for the FBI, for the media. But you haven't allowed yourself to just be hurt. Your grief is valid, your anger is valid, your sense of betrayal is valid. You don't have to be strong every moment." Over the following months, therapy helped me understand the psychological mechanics of what I'd experienced. The scam had worked because Chukwudi had identified exactly what I needed: validation, companionship, purpose, and provided it in measured doses. The financial requests were secondary to the emotional manipulation. I didn't send money because I was stupid. I sent money because I was invested in a relationship that felt real, and protecting that relationship meant removing any obstacles that threatened it. Dr. Morrison also helped me process the anger. I was furious. At Chukwudi for the deception, at myself for believing it, at a world where this kind of exploitation was so common that the FBI had entire departments dedicated to it. But she taught me to channel that anger productively. Rage that turns inward becomes depression. Rage that turns outward becomes change. You're already doing the work of turning your anger into protection for others. That's healthy processing. By early 2025, a year after I'd first accepted Michael's friend request, I'd achieved something I never expected: peace. Not the peace of forgetting, I'd never forget, but the peace of integration. The scam was part of my story now, but it wasn't the defining chapter. What defined me was how I'd responded, the investigation I'd helped build, the victims I'd supported, the systems I'd helped change. The Stolen Valor Victim Advocacy Organization had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. We had chapters in 12 states, over 500 active volunteers, all survivors themselves, and partnerships with law enforcement agencies across the country. We'd helped identify and report over 800 active scammers, provided support to more than 2,000 victims, and recovered over $3 million through coordinated law enforcement efforts. But the work that gave me the most satisfaction wasn't the big numbers. It was the individual moments. The woman who called to say she'd spotted a scam before sending money. The daughter who thanked me for helping her mother escape an abusive fraud relationship. the FBI agent who told me that our victim database had helped solve a case they'd been working for 2 years. In March 2025, I received notification that Chukwudi Okafor's trial was scheduled in Lagos. The Nigerian prosecutor invited me to submit a victim impact statement that would be read in court. I spent days crafting it, choosing every word carefully. Chukwudi Okafor didn't just steal $47,000 from me. He stole 8 months of my life. He weaponized my grief over my late husband. He exploited my loneliness, my compassion, and my respect for military service. He made me doubt my own judgment and intelligence. But here's what he didn't steal: my resilience, my determination, my ability to transform pain into purpose. I've helped hundreds of other victims recover from similar scams. I've worked with law enforcement to improve fraud investigations. I've educated thousands of people about recognizing and reporting these crimes. Chukwudi thought I was just a victim, a source of money to be exploited and discarded. He was wrong. I'm a survivor who fought back, and I'll continue fighting for as long as people like him continue targeting vulnerable people. The prosecutor read my statement in court. Chukwudi was sentenced to 14 years in prison, one of the longest sentences ever handed down for romance scam fraud in Nigeria. It was justice, but not closure. Closure, I'd learned, wasn't something handed down by judges. It was something you built yourself day by day, choice by choice. I was building mine through service, through connection with other survivors, through refusing to let shame or embarrassment silence me. And every time I helped another victim recognize a scam, every time I educated someone about warning signs, every time I shared my story despite the judgment, I was building not just my own closure, but protection for countless others. The military impersonation scammers were still out there, still targeting lonely women. But now we were ready for them, and we were fighting back with everything we had. Would my journey inspire others to turn their pain into power? The final confrontation was still ahead. In April 2025, 13 months after the nightmare began, I received an email that would test everything I'd built. The subject line read, "From the real General Michael Davidson." My stomach dropped. I opened it cautiously. "Dear Mrs. Henderson, my name is Michael Davidson. I am an actual brigadier general in the United States Army, currently assigned to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I recently learned that my name, my real name, has been used extensively by romance scammers to defraud victims. The Army CID informed me that your case involved someone using General Michael Davidson as a fake identity. I'm writing to apologize for the confusion and pain this has caused, even though I personally did nothing wrong. I'm also writing to ask if you'd be willing to meet with me. I have a proposal that might help prevent future victims." I verified his identity through the Pentagon's public directory before responding. He was real. Brigadier General Michael Davidson, 28 years of military service, currently serving as Deputy Commanding General at Fort Bragg, which was less than 2 hours from Raleigh. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop halfway between. I brought Agent Reeves with me, still cautious despite the verification. When General Davidson walked in wearing civilian clothes, jeans and a polo shirt, I was struck by how ordinary he looked. Not the glamorous figure from stolen photos, just a tired-looking man in his 50s with gray hair and kind eyes. "Mrs. Henderson, thank you for agreeing to meet." He shook my hand firmly. "I can't imagine how strange this must be for you." "It's surreal," I admitted. "I spent months in love with someone using your name, and now here you are, an actual person." He smiled sadly. "I've had my identity stolen by scammers for years. My name, my rank, even fabricated details about my family that match nothing about my real life. The Army has tried to combat it, but these fraudsters are persistent. As soon as one fake profile is taken down, 5 more pop up. Why did you want to meet?" "Because I have an idea, and I need your help to make it work." He pulled out a folder. "I want to create a joint military-civilian task force specifically focused on military romance scams. Not just investigation and prosecution, but prevention and victim support. The military side would provide resources, legitimacy, and access to official channels. The civilian side, organizations like yours, would provide victim perspective, community outreach, and the kind of grassroots credibility that government agencies can't achieve alone. I looked at Agent Reeves. She nodded slightly. This was legitimate. General Davidson continued, I'm proposing a formal partnership between the Army CID, the FBI, and Stolen Valor Victim Advocacy. We'd create educational campaigns, train service members to recognize when their identities are being stolen, develop rapid response protocols for victim support, and coordinate international law enforcement efforts. But I need someone who understands the victim experience to co-lead it. Someone who's been through it and came out the other side fighting. That's you, Carol. The proposal was ambitious. It would require significant time, coordination with military bureaucracy, and public visibility I wasn't sure I was ready for. But it was also exactly the kind of systemic change that could actually make a difference. What would this look like practically? I asked. You'd be appointed as a civilian advisor to the Army CID with official credentials and security clearance. You'd work with our investigators on active cases, help develop victim interview protocols, lead educational initiatives, and serve as the public face of victim advocacy. The Army would provide salary, resources, and administrative support. Essentially, you'd be doing the work you're already doing, but with the full weight of the United States military behind you. I'd gone from widow to scam victim to accidental advocate to potential official military advisor in just over a year. The trajectory was dizzying. Can I think about it? Of course. But there's one more thing you should know. He pulled out another document. We've identified a new trend in military romance scams. They're getting more sophisticated. Scammers are now using AI-generated voices for phone calls, deepfake videos for brief video chats, and even forged military documentation that looks authentic to non-experts. The woman who taught herself to recognize a scam through Google searches won't be enough anymore. We need professional-level intervention and education. Agent Reeves added, Carol, this is a chance to scale everything you've built. Right now, you're helping hundreds of people. With military partnership, you could help thousands, tens of thousands. I thought about Barbara, who'd called me at 2 a.m. contemplating suicide. I thought about Susan in Oregon, who'd recognized the scam because of my 60 Minutes interview. I thought about the 127 confirmed victims of Chukwudi's network alone, and the countless others being targeted right now by other scammers. I'll do it, I said, but I have conditions. First, victim voices have to be central to every decision. No policies about us without us. Second, we need guaranteed funding for direct victim support. Not just investigation, but therapy resources, financial counseling, legal assistance. Third, we commit to public transparency. No covering up embarrassing statistics to protect institutional reputation. General Davidson extended his hand. Deal. Welcome to the team, Mrs. Henderson. Over the next month, the formal partnership took shape. I underwent security clearance processing, attended briefings at Fort Bragg, met with Army leadership, and worked with military legal counsel to structure the task force appropriately. The official name became the Military Identity Theft and Romance Fraud Task Force, MITRF for short. It included representatives from Army CID, FBI, Secret Service, because of the financial crimes component, Homeland Security investigations, because of the international aspect, and 3 civilian victim advocacy organizations, including mine. Our first major initiative was a national awareness campaign, timed to launch on Armed Forces Day in May. We created video PSAs featuring real military members whose identities had been stolen, survivors who'd been scammed, and family members who'd helped loved ones escape fraud. I recorded my portion of the campaign wearing a t-shirt that said, Victim, Survivor, Warrior. I spoke directly to camera. I'm Carol Henderson. I sent $47,000 to a scammer pretending to be a U.S. Army general. I'm not sharing this because I'm proud of it. I'm sharing it because silence helps scammers and hurts victims. If you're in an online relationship with someone claiming to be military, especially if they're asking for money, stop and verify. Real service members don't ask for iTunes cards. Real generals don't need gift cards for military operations. And real love doesn't require wire transfers to prove trust. The campaign launched across social media, military bases, veteran organizations, and partnered news outlets. Within a week, we received over 10,000 responses, victims sharing their stories, family members asking for help, active duty service members reporting that their photos were being used in scams. But we also received something unexpected: threats. Anonymous messages warning me to stop interfering with people's livelihoods, emails containing personal information about my sons and grandchildren, even a package left at my door containing photos of me taken recently in public places. The FBI took the threats seriously. They traced some to known scammer networks in West Africa, others to domestic accomplices angry about law enforcement attention. Agent Reeves arranged for security assessment of my home and recommended precautions. "Carol, you've become a high-profile target," she said. "The awareness campaign has been incredibly effective, which means you're disrupting a very profitable industry. Some of these operators are getting desperate." General Davidson added military security resources. I was given a panic button device, regular security check-ins, and even a brief self-defense training course at Fort Bragg. The threats were frightening, but they also confirmed something important. We were winning. The scammers were scared enough to try intimidation. That meant our work was effective. In June, we got intelligence that changed everything. A cooperative witness, one of the money mules arrested in the earlier investigation, provided information about a planned coordinated attack on military romance scam awareness efforts. Scammer networks across West Africa were organizing a campaign to flood social media with fake victim testimonies, claiming the awareness efforts were misguided, that real relationships were being destroyed, that organizations like mine were just seeking attention and donations. It was information warfare. They couldn't stop us through intimidation, so they were trying to undermine our credibility and confuse potential victims about what was real and what was fake. "We need to get ahead of this," General Davidson said during an emergency task force meeting. "We need something so powerful, so undeniable, that their disinformation campaign can't compete." I knew exactly what that something needed to be. We need to bring the victims together, publicly. Hundreds of us, telling our stories simultaneously, showing the scale of this crime. We need to make it impossible to dismiss us as isolated incidents or attention seekers. And that's how the idea for the National Military Romance Scam Survivors Summit was born, an event that would bring together survivors, law enforcement, military leadership, and media in one massive public demonstration of the scope and impact of military romance fraud. It would be the largest gathering of romance scam survivors in history, and it would send a message that couldn't be ignored. We're not hiding anymore. We're not ashamed anymore. And we're not stopping until this industry is dismantled. But organizing an event of that scale would require resources, coordination, and courage I wasn't sure we had. The final battle was about to begin. The National Military Romance Scam Survivors Summit was scheduled for August 15, 2025, at the Convention Center in Washington, D.C. We anticipated maybe 200 attendees: survivors, family members, law enforcement, advocates. We prepared for that scale. We were completely unprepared for what actually happened. Registration opened in early July. Within 48 hours, we had 600 confirmed attendees. By the end of the week, over 1,500. We had to move to a larger venue, the Walter E. Washington Convention Center, which could accommodate 3,000 people. We thought we were being overly cautious with that size. By mid-August, we had 4,200 registered attendees from all 50 states and 17 countries. Survivors who'd been targeted by military romance scams were flying in from Australia, Canada, the UK, Germany, Japan. The scale was staggering. The media attention was intense. CNN, NBC, ABC, international news agencies, all requesting credentials to cover the event. The story had grown beyond individual scams into a broader conversation about online fraud, elder exploitation, and the global criminal networks facilitating it. But 3 days before the summit, we received a credible threat. The FBI intercepted communications from a scammer network planning to disrupt the event. The specifics were vague. "Teach these women a lesson. Show them there are consequences for interfering. But the threat was serious enough that the Secret Service got involved due to the presence of military generals and congressional representatives who'd confirmed attendance. General Davidson recommended canceling. "Carol, it's not worth the risk. We can reschedule, increase security, plan for—" "No." I was surprised by the firmness in my own voice. "That's exactly what they want. They want us scared, silent, hidden. We're not canceling. We're moving forward with every security measure we can implement, but we're not giving them the satisfaction of shutting us down." The FBI and Secret Service coordinated massive security. Metal detectors at every entrance, bag checks, plainclothes agents throughout the venue, even K-9 units. The convention center became a fortress. August 15th arrived. I barely slept the night before, running through my keynote speech, second-guessing every word, terrified I'd somehow let down the thousands of people who'd trusted me to lead this moment. At 8 a.m., attendees started arriving, and I started crying. Because these weren't just statistics or case numbers. They were real people. Women in their 60s wearing t-shirts with photos of the fake soldiers who'd scammed them, daughters supporting their mothers, even a few men who'd been targeted by female scammers posing as military nurses or officers. The opening session started at 10 a.m. General Davidson spoke first, in full dress uniform, his voice carrying authority and compassion. "To every survivor in this room, your government failed you. We failed to protect you from criminals who weaponized our uniform, our flag, our service members' identities. We failed to catch these predators before they hurt you. And in many cases, we failed to treat you with the dignity and respect you deserved when you came forward. On behalf of the United States military, I apologize, and I commit that we will do better." The audience erupted in applause that lasted 5 minutes. People were crying, holding each other, finally feeling acknowledged by an institution that represented what had been weaponized against them. FBI Director Christopher Wray spoke next via video, announcing a new initiative dedicating $50 million to combat romance fraud, with specific focus on military impersonation scams. It was the largest federal commitment to addressing this crime in history. Then it was my turn. I walked to the podium, looked out at 4,200 faces, and felt the weight of every story in that room. My name is Carol Henderson. 15 months ago, I sent $47,000 in iTunes gift cards to a scammer pretending to be a U.S. Army general. For months, I was ashamed. I felt stupid, desperate, pathetic. I thought I was alone. But I'm standing here today looking at over 4,000 survivors, and I realize we were never alone. We were systematically targeted by organized criminal networks who made billions of dollars exploiting human vulnerability. The shame doesn't belong to us. It belongs to them. The applause was thunderous, but I continued. Today, we're not just gathering as victims. We're organizing as warriors. Every person in this room has intelligence about how these scams work. We know the scripts they use, the psychological tactics they employ, the warning signs that emerge. Collectively, we represent the largest database of romance scam knowledge in the world, and we're going to use it. I unveiled the next phase of our mission, a comprehensive public database where survivors could anonymously document their scam experiences. The information would be analyzed by AI algorithms to identify patterns, predict new tactics, and create early warning systems. It would be shared with law enforcement, dating platforms, social media companies, and financial institutions. We're building a prediction and prevention system, I explained. When someone starts a conversation with a potential victim using known scammer language patterns, the system flags it. When someone tries to purchase unusual amounts of gift cards, retail systems alert them to potential scams. When a military member's photos appear on dating profiles they didn't create, they're notified immediately. We're taking everything these criminals taught us about manipulation and turning it into armor for future potential victims. The room was electric. This wasn't just a support group. This was a counteroffensive. The afternoon panels featured survivor testimonies. One after another, women, and some men, shared their stories. A retired nurse who'd sent $89,000 to a fake army surgeon. A school teacher who'd lost her house trying to help a scammer posing as a Navy admiral. A widow who'd contemplated suicide after discovering her fiancé of 2 years was a 23-year-old in Ghana using her grandfather's photos. But here's what made the testimonies powerful. They didn't end in despair. Every survivor shared what they'd done after discovery, how they'd reported to law enforcement, how they'd warned others, how they'd transformed pain into action. Linda, from my original victim support group, shared how she'd become a certified fraud educator and now taught classes at senior centers. Patricia had started a legal fund helping victims pursue civil cases against money mules. Jennifer had written a book documenting the psychological tactics of romance scammers. As the testimonies continued, something remarkable happened. The energy in the room shifted from pain to power. You could feel it. Thousands of people realizing they weren't broken, they were battle-tested. They'd survived sophisticated attacks on their psychology and finances, and they'd come out the other side ready to fight. The closing session featured a surprise. The real Colonel James Bradford, whose photos had been stolen and used in thousands of scams, including mine, appeared in person. He stood at attention in full-dress uniform and saluted the audience. "I'm Colonel James Bradford. My face has been used to commit crimes I would never dream of committing. My uniform has been used to deceive honorable people. And I'm here to say, thank you. Thank you for your courage in coming forward. Thank you for your strength in recovering. And thank you for your determination to protect others. You exemplify the values this uniform represents more than some people who actually wear it." There wasn't a dry eye in the house. The summit concluded with a candlelight vigil for the victims who hadn't survived. The suicides, the heart attacks from stress, the strokes triggered by financial devastation. We read their names aloud. 43 confirmed deaths connected to military romance scams in the past 3 years alone. As the final name was read, we stood in silence. Then someone started humming Amazing Grace. It spread through the room, 4,200 voices singing together. It was grief and defiance and hope all at once. After the vigil, I was approached by a woman I didn't recognize. She was young, maybe 30, with official-looking credentials. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm Deputy Director Morrison from the Federal Trade Commission. I attended today specifically to assess whether the government should formally partner with your organization for fraud prevention initiatives. After what I've witnessed today, the answer is absolutely yes. Expect a call from our office next week. We want to fund a national expansion of everything you've built here." I barely processed it. General Davidson pulled me aside. "Carol, do you understand what just happened today? This isn't just a support group anymore. This is a movement. You've created something that's going to change how this country addresses fraud, victim support, and criminal justice. This is historic." But the moment that mattered most came at the very end. A woman in her 70s, using a walker, approached me slowly. "Mrs. Henderson, my name is Dorothy. Not the Dorothy from Philadelphia, a different Dorothy from Iowa. I watched your 60 Minutes interview 6 months ago. At the time, I was in the middle of sending money to someone claiming to be a Marine colonel. I'd already sent $23,000. Your interview made me stop and investigate. I discovered it was a scam before I lost any more. You saved me. I wanted to say thank you in person." She hugged me, and I held her while she cried. This was why we did the work. Not for headlines or partnerships or federal funding. For Dorothy from Iowa. For every individual person we could protect from experiencing what we'd experienced. The scammers had taught us about manipulation, but we'd taught ourselves about resilience, solidarity, and fighting back. And we were just getting started. What legacy would this movement leave for future victims? The ending would prove that survivors could become warriors. 3 months after the summit, in November 2025, the changes we'd catalyzed were becoming reality. The Federal Trade Commission had approved a $15 million grant to Stolen Valor Victim Advocacy for national expansion. We opened regional offices in 10 states, hired 30 staff members, all romance scam survivors themselves, and launched a 24/7 hotline with trained peer counselors. The database we'd created, now called the Romance Scam Intelligence Network, contained over 12,000 documented scam cases contributed by survivors worldwide. The AI analysis had identified 340 active scammer personas, flagged 127 money mules for FBI investigation, and developed predictive algorithms that major dating platforms were beginning to implement. Match.com, eHarmony, and Facebook Dating all adopted our warning system. When someone's conversation patterns matched known scammer scripts, both parties received automatic alerts with educational resources. In the first month alone, the system prevented an estimated $8.4 million in potential fraud. Major retailers, Target, Walmart, Best Buy, implemented our point-of-sale warning protocols. When customers purchased large amounts of gift cards, cashiers were trained to ask specific questions and provide scam awareness materials. Some stores installed posters near gift card displays. Romance scammers often ask for payment in gift cards. Real love doesn't require iTunes codes. If someone you've never met in person is asking for gift cards, it's a scam. The FBI reported a 34% increase in romance scam reports following the summit and awareness campaigns, but a 22% decrease in total dollar losses. More victims were recognizing scams earlier and reporting them before losing life-changing amounts of money. The military implemented mandatory annual training for all service members about identity theft and romance scam impersonation. Soldiers were taught how to monitor for stolen photos, how to report fake profiles using their images, and how to support victims who'd been targeted using their identities. Chukwudi Okafor's conviction in Nigeria led to a domino effect. Using evidence from his seized computers, Nigerian authorities arrested 43 additional scammers. Ghana, South Africa, and Kenya launched similar crackdowns. Interpol created a dedicated task force for romance fraud, with representatives from 27 countries. But the changes that mattered most weren't institutional. They were personal. Barbara from Tennessee, who'd called me contemplating suicide 18 months ago, was now leading support groups in her community. Susan from Oregon had become a fraud educator for her state's Department of Elder Affairs. Dorothy from Philadelphia, the woman I'd helped at the airport, had written a one-woman show about her experience that was touring community theaters, educating audiences through storytelling. Linda, Patricia, Jennifer, and I remained close friends. We'd been through something together that created an unbreakable bond. We met monthly, not to relive trauma, but to celebrate victories. Every person we helped, every scammer arrested, every dollar recovered. My relationship with my sons had deepened. James, who'd tried to warn me about the scam early on, told me he'd never been more proud. "Mom, you took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into something that's protecting thousands of people. That's not just recovery. That's heroism." David had been documenting my journey for a book he was writing about resilience and recovery. He interviewed other survivors, law enforcement agents, even experts in criminal psychology. The working title was From iTunes to Justice: How Romance Scam Survivors Built a Movement. My grandchildren, who were teenagers now, participated in youth education programs about online safety. They taught their peers how to recognize catfishing, verify online identities, and support friends who might be experiencing manipulation. The next generation was growing up with awareness we hadn't had. In December, I returned to the coffee shop where I'd first met the real General Michael Davidson 9 months earlier. We'd stayed in touch, coordinating the ongoing work of the task force. Over coffee, he shared surprising news. "Carol, I'm retiring from the Army next summer. 30 years of service and I'm ready. But I've accepted a position as executive director of the new Center for Romance Fraud Prevention and Victim Support, a joint initiative funded by the Department of Justice. I want you to be co-director. We'd run it together: military and civilian perspective, institutional resources, and grassroots credibility." I didn't hesitate. "Yes," he smiled. "You didn't even ask about salary or responsibilities." "I don't need to. This is the work I was meant to do. Everything that happened, the scam, the pain, the recovery, it led here. I'm not grateful for what Chukwudi did to me, but I'm grateful for what I became in response to it." On December 15th, exactly 20 months after I'd first accepted a friend request from a fake general, I attended Chukwudi Okafor's parole hearing via video conference. The Nigerian parole board asked if I wanted to make a statement. I looked at Chukwudi's face on the screen, still young, still showing no real remorse, and spoke directly to him. Chukwudi, you thought I was just a victim, someone weak, lonely, and easy to exploit. You thought taking my money would leave me broken and ashamed. You were wrong. You didn't break me. You forged me. Everything you did, the lies, the manipulation, the theft, taught me exactly how your industry works. And I've spent every day since your arrest using that knowledge to dismantle operations just like yours. I've helped put dozens of your colleagues in prison. I've protected thousands of potential victims. I've built systems that will outlive both of us, protecting people you'll never get the chance to target. You didn't destroy me. You created your worst enemy. And I'm just getting started. The parole board denied his early release. He'd serve his full 14-year sentence. I closed the laptop and looked around my home office. The walls were covered with photos from the summit, letters from survivors I'd helped, certificates of appreciation from law enforcement agencies. This had become my life's work, not because I'd chosen it initially, but because pain had been transformed into purpose. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Henderson, my name is Angela. I think I'm being scammed by someone claiming to be a Navy admiral. I found your website. Can you help me? I smiled and typed back, Yes, Angela. I can help. Let's talk. The work continues. The scammers are still out there, but so are we. And we're not hiding anymore. 2 years after I sent that first iTunes gift card to a fake general, I received a letter from an unexpected source, the real Colonel James Bradford, whose stolen photos had been used in my scam. Dear Carol, I've followed your work with admiration. You've done more to protect military service members' reputations and honor than most official programs ever achieved. I'm recommending you for the Secretary of Defense Exceptional Public Service Award, the highest honor the Pentagon gives to civilians. You earned it. Thank you for turning a crime against you into protection for countless others. Respectfully, Colonel James Bradford, U.S. Army. I hung the letter in my office next to a photo from the summit. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Victims can become heroes. Pain can become purpose. And one woman with iTunes gift cards and determination can help change the world. Could your awareness save someone you love? If you or someone you know is in an online relationship with someone you've never met in person, especially someone claiming to be military, please watch for these red flags. Requests for gift cards, inability to video call, frozen bank accounts, emergency financial needs, and pressure to keep the relationship secret. Share this story. Not to shame victims, but to protect potential targets. Romance scams thrive in silence. They collapse under awareness. Visit romancescamintelligencenetwork.org to report suspicious profiles, verify military identities, or get support if you've been victimized. Your story matters. Your voice matters. Together, we make it impossible for scammers to operate. Comment below. What warning sign from Carol's story stood out most to you?